All right, so you'll recall that I was talking about the flashing kit that you can buy from Winterwell, and it seems like I've seen it other places too. It's probably a common setup where you poke holes in your material and run the wing nuts down. I wouldn't have a problem doing that if the section of material that I was poking holes in was a removable section and it was something that you could replace. But I'm not interested in damaging and messing up the integrity of the fabric, right? So what I came up with was just regular pipe flashing. I'll post a link to it at the bottom of the video. I got it on Amazon. It's like 20 bucks. So anyway, it's not cut. You cut it to fit over your pipe. Now what I have here is a piece of triple wall pipe that's going to go through my hole, and really it's not gonna, it might not even be necessary on this tent given that I'm using this piece of pipe. But what I'm going to do is cut this out so that it'll fit over the pipe, like so. Now this is actually the bottom section of pipe. I'll have to get it over the top, and you might be able to tell this is a little bit wider, but this is pretty stretchy. I think we can do it. And I'm gonna cut it so that it fits nice and snug over the pipe. Now when you do this, if you have this kind of piece of pipe, you don't want to cover up these holes. You want to be below the holes. So when you stack up your pipe and you start putting it up, this portion of the pipe should be out of the roof so that it can get cool air. And it helps to keep this cool. All right, so let's do it. Now on my piece of pipe, whenever I stuck it in here, it seemed to go right about here. It was probably right about here. But because it's stretchy and we can't go backwards, I'm just going to cut it a little bit higher up where it's a little bit narrower. And then we'll adjust it as needed. Kind of a rascally thing to cut because it's very sort of chewy. I'm not worried about how pretty it looks, just how well it works. Now, you can get these in silicone or what is it, EPDM. So this one's rated, this is not silicone, it's the EPDM, and it's rated up to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, this piece of triple wall pipe will be, you know, 6 feet, 5 feet away from the stove, and it cools. All right, so we're just gonna stretch it over there. It's tight. I could probably lube it, but I don't want to risk having to smell anything burning off. And see, this is bendable. I mean, these are really made for like metal roof. If you wanted to put a stove in your shop, you know, these conform to the roof. All right, so I don't know how much of this is going to end up sticking out of the tent roof yet, how much of this pipe. So, and what we'll do is we'll just pull it down until it's snug with the fabric on the tent. And that way any rain that shows up can just run off. It'll never be, I don't imagine it'll ever be 100% waterproof, and who really cares if a few raindrops come in, right? But if you got that big storm, you could get quite a bit of water. Hey. All right. All right, so the stove is in. There's my pipe. The piece of flashing that I put on is a little too far down, so we're gonna push it up. We're gonna go outside to do that. So there it is. Probably not gonna be able to move it up. Set the camera down. We definitely don't want it resting tightly against the tent, because if the wind blows it'll lift the pipe up, right? So we don't want to do that. Need to use two hands here. All right, there we go. I can push that down, I can modify it a little more, and I'm not gonna do this, but I will say if you wanted to really like make it sort of tight against your fabric, I mean, look, the factory setup here is really, I mean, I had never put this tent up before, right? So I was just assuming that was a bigger hole than it is. I technically don't even need that, I don't feel like. But there is a bigger gap on the other side. It's probably, there's a, you know, but I don't care about that. That's not that big of a deal. But you know, it makes a little umbrella for it. Rain can, you know, land here and run off. I don't know. No such thing as perfect. But, you know, I just don't want this to flip up and lift my pipe out of the, that would, man, that would suck. So better have some gloves handy, you know, in case something like that happens. You don't, I mean, if you didn't have any gloves, you couldn't fix the problem, because it would be too hot to touch. All right, well, that's the flashing. That was my idea for the flashing. Now, I'm gonna mention another thing, and that is that the stove, the winter well manual says to keep 48 inches away from anything combustible. That's as good as we can get it. I don't have a tape measure, but let's go over here and look. The stove is 18 inches, so we're 18 to 20 inches. We're say 30 inches. You're not going to get 48 inches. So don't burn it hot. Oh, see, that's what I'm talking about. I need to adjust that thing a little bit better. I want it up higher, but I'll fine tune that off camera. Can't do it while I'm holding the camera. But so 48 inches, you can't get 48 inches with any stove. I mean, the stove jack itself is not far enough away from the wall, so you know, is it that critical? I don't really feel like it is, but You know, I'm not going to burn this thing wide open where it's glowing red. That might singe the fabric, but anyway, there we go.